It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can. It was whispered by slaves and abolitionists as they blazed the trail toward freedom. Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
It was sung.
It was sung by immigrants as they struck out to distant shores, pioneers who pushed westward against unforgiving wilderness. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
It was the call of workers organized, women who reached for the ballots, a president who chose the moon as our new frontier,
and a king who took us to the mountaintop and pointed the way to the promised land.
Yes, we can to justice and equality.
The Monday Morning Quarterback on the 28th of August 2017 from WBRN Radio in Boston on the Boston Red Network. We'll start this off with a new proposal, a software development proposal from the ICE, the U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement people looking for help from the private sector to gather and analyze a mass amount of data, we'll call it big data, on 500,000 unauthorized immigrants a month, including their phone numbers, place of employment, insurance claims, and also payday loans. The new system would help ICE track, described as a priority criminal aliens by funneling data from at least 17 sources into one system. That's according to a request published early in August. The continual monitoring alert system described in the ICE request would combine real-time information on jail bookings, FBI numbers with other records that a person generates in everyday life, including car registration, credit history, wire transfers. The system apparently would expand on and formalize a little publicized data collection program that ICE began last year under DJ Trump. The agency says it's now requires a more robust tool for collecting data on its targets. Now, at the beginning of last year, that was before DJ Trump appeared on the scene. He's this year's bad news. Anyway, experts on immigration policy and digital privacy told Reveal, now this is on the Reveal site. Incidentally, one of the reporters from Reveal intervened in a altercation out in Berkeley. Now, as it's reported, it was a media fest out there. In other words, if it bleeds, it leads. And in Berkeley, you had these provocateurs, the Patriot group from Oregon coming into Berkeley to provoke the people of Berkeley. And they did, in fact, cause a provocation there. And the media used it, as Tennessee Reed said, to present Berkeley as a violent city, which is not. Thousands of people gathered peacefully and demonstrated against fascism, Nazism, etc., DJ Trump, you name it, they're all in the same boat. And then as things break up, they escalate. A few dozen people, young people, got in there, and they confronted these Oregon so-called Patriot group characters at an anti-Marxist rally, they called it, there in Berkeley. We'll have more on that later, but let me jump back here. The request said it is notable for the breadth of the data sources put into the proposal, under the number of people that ICE would keep under continuous surveillance, and the fact that ICE plans to outsource the work. Well, much of the work is outsourced these days. What we have been fearing is that the government would be expanding its efforts to vacuum up data in order to monitor and find and deport undocumented immigrants. That's from Adam Swartz. He's a senior staff attorney at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which advocates for digital privacy. Another attorney there, Lena Garber, called it really creepy. Well, it's more than creepy. In an era where people have a hard time distinguishing between corporate collecting data and for marketing purposes, and the government collecting it for Orwellian purposes, after the George Orwell's book. This blends the two realities dramatically. She said the notice is preliminary request for information, not a formal contract solicitation. The ICE Operations Division has gathered public records from subscription-based services since 2006. That's back to the administration of G.W. Bush, according to the request. However, the division's current capabilities have failed to meet basically growing demand. Sourcing so many different data sources could help ICE ensure that they know a person's current address before moving in to make an arrest. In other words, if a person has an address for a payday loan or whatever, they would have that address, so people would be nomadic. According to supplemental document posted, a current contract with Thomson Reuters as special services to provide some, but apparently not all of his data. And so this starts exposing some of the people there. The deal dates back to September of 2016, when ICE announced a no-bid award to the company worth $1.5 million a year, saying it was the only vendor that could offer a database needs to assist Targeting Operations Division in meeting its mission. The contract included a requirement to track 500,000 people at one time. Thomson Reuters has a special services has a number of ICE contracts and employs a few former agency officials, including James Dinkins, a vice president and general manager, general counsel Peter Vinson, the company's CEO Steve Rugley is a board member of the ICE Foundation, which supports ICE employees and their families. ICE generally prefers to make arrests in jails, but if they can get there before the target is released, ICE has access to local jail bookings. The program is called Secured Communities, and it was reinstalled under DJ Trump. John, Sanjweg, former acting director of ICE, told NPR that agents already use a combination of public and private data, including utility bills, driver's license records, to track some unauthorized immigrants. The main thing is to get the address, but 50% of these addresses aren't good, so sometimes they follow up leads and end up with churches or worship places. A North Carolina immigration attorney named Jeremy McKinney, and a board member of the American Immigrants Lawyers Association, said he's seen evidence that ICE has access to these kinds of details, arresting a client at his or her workplace, for example, even though they have no formal notice that the person worked there. In February, ICE, head of enforcement and removal operation, told its officers to take enforcement action against all removable aliens encountered in the course of their duties, according to a memo put out by ProPublica. So, in other words, very long situation here. Let me finish this up. Alvaro Bedoya, executive director of the Center on Privacy and Technology at Georgetown University, said ICE is running with a trend that began with G.W. Bush and accelerated under President Obama. The data collection described in ICE's contract request is consistent with those efforts. Deportation going high-tech is a process that started under President Obama, Bedoya said. But what we've seen on the DJ Trump is basically take off the gloves. In other words, you get everybody you can. It's consistent with the policies he's put out there. So this is what has currently happened here. I thought we'd take a look at what is published here. We'll probably do this on the open source report where we get more into technology. This is government bids op here, and this is basically from them a request to obtain massive critical commercial subscription data to conduct custom analysis, screening, and monitoring of the Department of Homeland Security's priority criminal alien information. This is part of what they put out here, and several requests for proposals are here. We won't go into those. Let's skip on here, and we'll start our Hurricane Harvey coverage here with FEMA. FEMA is on the ground, 5,000 strong, evidently from this Washington Post report here in the state of Texas, but the flooding is up to 20 feet there. And from Craig Fugate, I don't know if you remember him, he was a director under President Barack Obama. Basically what he said is that FEMA is still in a situation that as far as coordination with various other agencies, it falls short. Their budget is $3.5 billion. That's the FEMA budget would lose $361 million under DJ Trump's budget he submitted to Congress in March. So in other words, what happens when you submit these budgets, you don't anticipate what is going on here. The Coast Guard's $9.1 billion budget for fiscal year starting in March would be cut to by 14%, almost 15%. But the Coast Guard is part of the effort there in the on the coast. It is no doubt about it. It's hard to say this is totally different from Katrina. Long said Sunday, recounting Harvey's unusual weather patterns, and that will be around until March. Let's go to the BBC and get the extended coverage going on here. And let's see, we'll find this. Battles on unprecedented floods is the headline there. The city of Houston is in grips of the biggest storm in the history of the state of Texas. That's according to meteorologists there. More than 30 inches of rain, that's 75 centimeters of rain, have fallen on parts of the city. It's the city of Houston this weekend, turning the main roads, rivers, etc., making it impossible to move around other than by boat. The city is expecting to be deluged by the year's rainfall within a week. The rescue services overstretched as the conditions have worsened there in Houston. We'll put up some of these photos here. This is a new round of there's a new round of school closures. All commercial flight operations from the city's two major airports have been stopped until further notice. Up to 2,000 people have been rescued in floods from tropical storm Harvey, as it is known now. There are reports of possible deaths in submerged vehicles, but investigators that continues on. The National Weather Service, another victim of DJ Trump's, says conditions are underpredicted. It says there is a flash flood emergency across the Houston metro with travel nearly impossible unless you're in a motorboat, rowboat, or something. Houston Chronicle published an unidentified man trying to catch a fish as he waded through the water. Well, it's probably not unusual. You probably do have people doing that. One woman posed outside online with two alligators in her backyard. I didn't know they had them there. I thought they were all down in Florida. Nonetheless, Houston, like the island city of Galveston, was also hit by epic tropic catastrophic flooding overnight. That's the National Weather Service there. Is the storm going to get worse? The creeks and waterways that cross Houston area have certainly been getting fuller since the tropical storm Harvey arrived. The first hit on Friday. Many areas are flooded or face flooding throughout next week. So this is not ending, at least up till Wednesday. There are little signs of any major improvements over the next 7 days. Now, we're talking about next, so it'll be all of this coming week. The Coast Guard has requested more helicopters. DJ Trump was planning to visit Texas on Tuesday. He should probably postpone. I remember President Obama did not visit during a hurricane struck. He waited until the cleanup crews were pretty much out. Insurance experts quoted by Reuters said it would equal the damage inflicted by Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Widely reported to be the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. It estimated Katrina cost $15 billion worth of flood damage in the states of Louisiana and Mississippi. Mayor Turner has urged citizens not to call emergency services unless their situation is life-threatening. No doubt. The big trees on Goose Island State Park, that's near Rockport, which was hard hit, more than 1,000 years old, stand at 44 feet, that's 13.4 centimeters, have trunks diameter of 11 feet and 3.4 meters. It stayed standing while other trees that were blown over. That's from the Texas Wildlife Department there. Just shows you how dire things are, and some of these rainfall levels, just looking at in places like San Marcos, San Antonio. I'm looking at the blue here, 20 or more inches there, and 15 to 20 inches in places around like Victoria, Corpus Christi, etc. there. Houston, let's see. Yeah, 20 to 15 there. ExxonMobil said it has shut down the second largest refinery in the country at Baytown, Texas. Is key to oil and gas. Harvey has begun as a major Category 4 hurricane, the first to make landfall in the U.S. in 13 years. It arrived there. Risk posed by heavy rainfall. It has there the greatest threat to life and property remains the ongoing extreme rainfall and subsequent prolonged and catastrophic flooding. That's from the National Weather Service there. So this goes on. Let's see if we get some guy trying to do some fishing. Oh, he's actually inside, it seems. Catches fish inside home flooded by Katrina. At least he got a fish to eat. Now if he can find a place dry to go cook it. The catch didn't come easy. Anyway, how the man leaped. And this is from the Houston Chronicle, a daily newspaper in Houston, Texas. Evacuation ordered as a flood runs. We'll run to it. Houston is hunkered down. My friend Pam was hunkering down. I haven't heard from her. I'm a little worried about her down in Houston. Oops. Let me see if we can. If there is an evacuation order. Let's see. Rainfall between 3 and 4 inches Sunday night forced regional authorities to issue a series of mandatory and voluntary evacuations, ordering residents in impacted areas to leave overnight or early Monday morning. Now, not sure where that is. To bridges, etc. Let's go up and see if we can find out where it is. And we won't know anyway. This is, well, we're not sure where those are. Harris County Flood Control announced that the Army Corps of Engineers begin releasing water from aqueducts and the Baker reserves are there. The release of a couple of hours early in the ADOX ban was initially announced 12 hours earlier planned for Baker. So some of these stories are developing in the Houston paper as we go on, but as far as I know, there's not a general Water County said numerous flood rescue and evacuations from rising water were underway. So these are different communities that are having these. People on social media, Twitter, Facebook, can find the information there via their smartphone. The devastation of the tropical storm Harvey, the worst storm to slam into the U.S. since Katrina, rapid across the Gulf Coast more than a decade ago, will leave untold billions in damage. We just talked about that. So this is a very, very costly storm that no doubt will impact the national budget of the Trump administration, not only of the FEMA people and the Coast Guard people, but of other things coming to it. And as we look here, the rain is still coming down and will continue to come down it. Some Houston schools are closed. Evidently, I guess they started a little bit early. There's water there, so obviously the Red Cross opens 8 shelters in the Houston area. What you can do to help the storm victims, parted up here is the 8 shelters. Let me get to those. People lined up here we see will show this. Red Cross currently has 8 designated shelters open in Greater Houston. The Bay Harbor Methodist Church, the Walker County Storm Shelter. That's in Huntsville and Galveston, East Galveston, etc. Some of those places that are there, you can just contact the Red Cross at redcross.org is the easiest way to take care of that particular issue. We'll move on here now to Charlie Cook. We've been wanting to get Mr. Cook up for quite some time here. His reports are always timely, and here we go. Senate ratings change in 5 races. This was on the 17th from Jennifer Duffy. The new ratings in 5 states here. In 212, I don't know if we reported this before. Joe Donnelly, the sheriff as he's called, was in the House opponent Richard Murdoch. Well, that was that election. Donnelly is high on the target list, no doubt about that. The Republicans hope it's a competitive primary between Luke Messer and Tom Rokita. I'm not sure who he is. There's several others here, too. The contest is a toss-up in Missouri. Clara McCaskill, her contest is also a toss-up. In Nevada, I believe we gave these. In North Dakota, Heidi Hennick, and we gave these 2 out. Let's go to some more of his reports here. This is from the Cook Political Report. This is on the 25th from Jennifer Duffy. The Republican 2008 Nightmare by Jennifer Duffy. When a party in power loses a Senate and House or House seats in midterm, is generally because the president isn't very popular. Because the president has put forth and Congress has approved policies that proved to be very unpopular. In 2006, Republicans lost 6 seats and their majority in the Senate, largely because the voters were unhappy about the war in Iraq, and the results were unhappy with G.W. Bush. In 2010, Democrats lost 6 seats. This is in the Senate, but hung on to a majority by a thread because many voters didn't like the new approved Affordable Care Act, which has changed. Thus, few approved of President Barack Obama, and few of his. So some argued that losing seats in the midterm elections is simply the price a party pays for acting on its own policies. Then there's DJ Trump, who in just 7 months has added a whole new dimension to the body of evidence about why a party in power loses seats in midterm elections. Instead of helping his party hang on to the Senate, he appears to be doing all he can to help the Republicans lose them. The Republicans entered this cycle with two major advantages. First, 25 Democrats are defending seats just to 9 Republicans. That is a terrific advantage. DJ Trump carried 10 of the Democratic-held seats, and at the very least, 2 factors were supposed to provide a solid line of defense against any losses. In fact, DJ Trump disregard of the health of the GOP Senate, he didn't really care about that, has missed opportunities, outright hostility to cabinet. Despite meeting with Senators Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota and Joe Meacham of West Virginia, Trump didn't make the offer. They could refuse to entice him into his cabinet. Republicans have been favored to win both of these seats of incumbents, other than Heidi Heitkamp and Meacham occupies. In Montana, through all knew that at-large Representative Zinke was geared up to challenge John Tester. The Republican was the strongest recruit, yet he appointed Zinke to the Interior Department, and causing the seat to slide down the Republican list. In Alabama, that's the number we covered this one. Luther Strangelove, he endorsed an appointed character there, tweeted it seems too little too late, although the Strange campaign made the most of it. Now Strange is in a runoff battle with Roy Moore, Justice Moore, begging the question of whether there will even be a primary if Trump would put any effort into uniting the party. Big Luther would be considered the front runner against Doug Jones, but Jones Moore contest would be more interesting than it should be. It could very well be that. Dean Heller out in Nevada, the pro-Trump super PAC, America First policies, actually started running ads criticizing Heller, and they basically intend to inflict damage. Danny Tartanian has announced a challenge there. He's the son of the coach of the Vegas University there, running Rebels, I think it was called. Coach Tartanian. Anyway, what Trump chooses to ignore here is that the Democratic presidential nominee, Hillary the Monster Clinton, carried Nevada, and it's a swing state. Heller eked out in 2012 just 10,000 votes, as President Obama was carrying the state by 6 points. As far as the more conservative candidates like Tarkanian would struggle in a general election. In Arizona, Jeff Flake there, when Trump appeared to endorse former Senator Kelly Ward, known as Chemtrail Kelly, via Twitter, Ward ran against John McCain, taking 40% of the vote, which is more reflective of how conservatives the electorate is than it's about Chemtrail Kelly. Other candidates there, they mentioned them, Robert Graham, anyway, whatever. In Tennessee, attacked Bob Coker there. Coker is somewhat better positioned than his colleagues. An open gubernatorial contest will guarantee voters turnout, but the race could still be competitive. That's in Tennessee. Al Gore's old state. At one time, Democrats did rule in Tennessee, believe it or not. There are those who dismiss the primaries, arguing that the incumbents usually win, though it doesn't really matter. It does matter because in the era that drains with the Tea Party, dawns, with the Tea Party challenges to incumbents, there's been losses. See Robert Bennett, he was out in Utah. Richard Lugar in Indiana. The real question is, as it's with many things in the Trump world, is what the president believes he's actually achieving by attacking his own party Senate. Well, he'd probably just like to get rid of him. Anyway, of course, it may be that Trump lacks the capability to see the big picture. I doubt that very seriously. DJ Trump is one that watches the big picture, no doubt about that. If there's a silver lining for Republicans, it's hard to see how the Democrats pick up 3 seats they need to win the majority, even if they hold all 25 of their own, which is hardly a foregone conclusion. They must win both Arizona and Nevada. Where does the 3rd seat come from? Well, that's always a big problem right there. In Texas, well, I don't know. Beto O'Rourke is a serious Republican. At least anyway. Still, that 52-seat majority frustrates Trump's 51-seat majority to tie Senate vote is a lot less palatable. That's where the Vice President Pence comes in. So we'll see where they go. Well, let's see. We haven't done the Cook Report in a while, and we'll just see what else is here. Charlie Cook's Guide to Political Environment. I don't know. Here's recently out here by Charlie Cook. With a little over a year until the midterm elections, candidates and campaigns are still in a very early stage of development. I would hope so. To that end, we have compiled polls and data we think best measure the national move, including Trump's approval ratings. And this is a PDF here. On August 23rd. Let me just briefly look at it. I think we have enough time before we do the sports here. That's interesting. We'll see what Mr. Cook has in store here. Well, the president's approval rating, according to Gallup, at about 37. That's where he averages at. The president's job approval rating by party. Yeah. Independence is at 31. He's still at 78 with Republicans, 8% with Democrats. Wonder where are they? Presidential approval rating, other polls to watch. Fox News, looking at Fox. At NBC, here, approval is a negative 15% here. CBS, 41% at Fox, 40% at NBC, 36% at CBS, 40% at CNN there. And some of the other current approval ratings at 37%. That's being generous there. Right direction, wrong direction. Right direction, 34%. Wrong direction, 59% in this graphic. Party identification, 28% identifies Republicans, 41% as independents, 29% as Democrats. This is from Gallup, who no longer does presidential elections. Party favorable, unfavorable ratings here. Democrats up by 2 in Pew, Democrats up by 4. At Fox, this is the 15th through 18th of January. This is pretty old here. Consumer confidence, this is another situation coming in here. Last 6 years to present. Consumer confidence at 121.1, and consumer sentiment at 97.6. Not bad. We'll get into negative attitudes. The current Senate breakdown by party: 48 Democrats, 52 Republicans. Cook report map for 43. Anyway, get much into that one. Current House breakdown: 194 Democrats, 240 Republicans. Democrats need 24 seats to do what they need. They need to win likely in lean columns. They need to win all 9 toss-ups and 16 of 21 lean Republicans. That's almost an impossible thing in the House. And in the Senate, they need at least 3 more seats to pick up. They need to hold all 25 seats. That's kind of rough right there. So anyway, this is the Cook report. Let's go do the sports now. The Mayweather-McGregor fight there, it went out of TKO by Mr. Mayweather there. Now he has passed Rocky Marciano. 50 wins there. Nonetheless, the Mariners were in New York. The Yankees 10-1 over Seattle. The Twins were in Toronto. Twins 7-2 over the Blue Jays. The Royals were in Cleveland and were shut out by Cleveland 12-0. The Pirates were in Cincy. Pirates 5-2. The Padres and Marlins. Marlins 6-2 over the Padres. The Orioles and Red Sox in Fenway Park. Orioles 2-1 over the Red Sox. The Rockies and Atlanta. They shut out Atlanta in Atlanta 3-0. The Cubbies and Phillies. It was all Phillies today. 6-3 Phillies over the Cubbies. Mr. Lackey was the loser. The Mets and Nationals, a game. It was a doubleheader, actually. The Mets won the first one 6-5. They had 9 hits, 1 error in that one, and the Nationals had 14 hits, no error. And the Tigers and White Sox on the south side of Chicago. Tigers 7-1. The White Sox 7-1. And in 10, the Rays and Cardinals in St. Louis. Rays pulled that one out 3-2 over the Cards. The Astros and Angels in California. Astros 7-5. The Rangers and Athletics in Oakland. Oakland 8-3. The Brewers and Dodgers in California. Brewers 3-2. The Giants and D-backs in Arizona, and the Giants were shut out. They're just hopeless this year. 11-0. And in the second and final game was the only night game in Major League Baseball. The Nationals won that game 5-4 over the Mets. So they came out with one here, Mr. Doolittle, not Jimmy Doolittle, but S. Doolittle. I'm not sure who S. Doolittle is. He got the save, his 13th. So that is Major League Baseball. We'll look at the standings real quickly here. In the American League East, Boston's on top. The Yankees are 2.5 games back. Baltimore is 8 games back. I think they're out of it. In the Central, Cleveland is on top. The Twins are 6.5 games back. The Royals are 9 games back. In the American League West, it's all Houston. The Angels, Los Angeles Angels is now, they're called 13.5 games back. In the National League East, the Nationals on top, then the Marlins, but they're 12 games back. In the Central, the Cubbies on top. Milwaukee is right behind them. They're 2 games back. And the Cards are 4.5 games back. This will be a race into September, no doubt about it. And in the West, the Dodgers are all there. Arizona's 19 games back. But the Rockies are staying close. They're only 20 and a half games back. This will do it for us, Monday Morning Quarterback on the 28th of August, 2017. If you're in the Houston area, including my friend Pam and company down there, stay safe. As they say, move to higher ground, or at least move to the top of an apartment flat or wherever you can get, as this water is going to be a factor, evidently, according to National Weather Bureau, all a week along in Houston. Good day.